Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Military Adaptive Sports Program Alumni and Caretaker Roundtable. We're just going to have a real casual talk here with some folks who have gone through the Military Adaptive Sports Program and just hear a little bit about their experiences and hear how it's affected them in moving on, either going back to active duty or retirement. I'm Patrick Johnson, and I am the site coordinator at Walter Reed Hospital. I am also a 20-year Navy veteran, very proud to be serving on this team here, serving my peers. And my co-host today is Kelly Fisher, and I'll let Kelly introduce herself here and take it over.
Hi there, yes, it's good to see you guys. I am Kelly Fisher. I am the Marine Corps Service Lead for MASP, so I work at Marine Corps Headquarters Quantico, and I have been there for a little over 4 years now, loving this and what I do. I'm very excited to hear from everybody today and chat with you guys. Real quickly, before we jump into the discussion, we have a short message from Sergeant Major Edward Parsons, who is the senior enlisted leader for the Marine Corps Wounded Warrior Regiment. He has been with the program since about 2015 when he was at Wounded Warrior Battalion East, and has been at Regiment since 2019. So he's had a lot of opportunity to see some of the positive impacts these programs have on RSMs and their families.
My name is Sergeant Major Edward Drico Parsons. I am the Sergeant Major for Wounded Warrior Regiment, and I advise the commanding officer of Wounded Warrior Regiment on warrior care policies for the Marine Corps. I'd like to welcome everyone to the roundtable that you all are part of. It's important to us as the leadership throughout warrior care programs and policies throughout OSD to bring you all together so that you can hear each other's concerns, and more importantly, so that we can hear your concerns. The coronavirus pandemic that has moved throughout our nation has caused us to really rethink how we do business, what's important in our lives right now. And as we step back and assess, nothing's more important than family. Nothing's more important for us in the construct of this conversation, the recovery of your service member and your health. In 2015, whenever I was the Sergeant Major for Wounded Warrior Battalion East, we had a recovering service member that was wheelchair bound. He was in a vehicle accident that rendered him to a wheelchair. And one of my first conversations with him was, "Hey, Marine, how are you doing? What brought you here to the battalion?" And he said, "The vehicle accident that he was in." And I said, "So what do you want to do? What are your goals while you're here?" And the Marine said, "I want to be able to carry my daughter." He had a newborn child. So over the months and the almost 2 years that I was there as a battalion sergeant major, I watched this Marine go from a wheelchair to a walker, from a walker to crutches, from crutches to a cane, and then from the cane, being able to walk on his own strength. And before I left the battalion, the Marine came to my office, and he had his wife with him and his baby daughter, and he was standing on his own 2 feet with his baby. And I said, "Marine, you made it. You made it to what your goal was." Whenever you have a Marine or a service member that has been so dedicated for a period of time for something that is ingrained into their being, and that's being a Marine. They get married, and their spouses become part of that larger family of the Marine Corps. Specifically, it always delights me whenever I see a spouse with a Marine spouse shirt on, or their husband or wives unit shirt on, because they have taken on that same spirit. Well, whenever that illness or injury happens to the service member, it also tremendously impacts their spouse also. It impacts the spouse because, one, they're worried about what tomorrow's going to hold. Is their husband or wife's life going to be preserved? Are they going to receive the care that they need? Is the organization still going to remember them? And then whenever Marines are assigned to Wounded Warrior Regiment, they still have those questions. And then they have the opportunity to see that this is a family holistic approach to recovery. The spouse is just as much a part of the recovering service members' recovery process as war athlete reconditioning programs that we have and other adaptive sports programs that we have. The spouse has such a tremendous impact because the encouragement that they provide, for the example that I used earlier, the Marine was in a wheelchair. Well, somebody had to make sure that Marine was fed. Someone had to make sure that Marine received their medication. Someone had to make sure that Marine made it to their appointments. Somebody was there to wipe the tears. Someone was there to ensure that all of the life's necessities happen, and that is the spouse. That spouse becomes such an integral part of their recovery that we can't fully ensure that the Marine or recovering service member recovers to the best of their ability in their own way without the spouse involvement. The spouse's involvement, not only through the recovery and athlete reconditioning program, is so important that at some of our facilities that we have, where we have them, the spouses are invited to come and utilize the facilities too. The other programs that we have, and there are a host of them, inviting them to be part of the battalion as they would at any other unit, but more so here because at Wounded Warrior Regiment, because they're able to be a visible indicator of that Marine's recovery for us. If the spouse is engaged with the recovering service member, there is a high probability that that recovering service member's full potential for recovery is going to be high. As everything else seemingly is falling apart around you, have faith that the recovery process is well intact, and through your strength and through your participation in your recovering service members' recovery process, and for recovering service members, stay in the fight. And for caregivers, we can't do it without you. Please continue to remain engaged, not only with your recovering service member, but with their recovering process. We need that. Your service member needs that. Thank you for all you're doing for your recovering service member and for us and Warrior Care programs, because you are why we are here.
I just want to go around the room and do some introductions. I would love, everyone on here is either a current or alumni of MASS, Military Adaptive Sports. And that makes me really happy to see folks on there. I see some folks all over the country, some folks in some strange shaped buildings. I see one there. Some folks with some fun COVID-19 hair. So it's great to see some of your faces. Wanted to go around, and if you could just introduce yourself. There you go. I see you. You knew I was talking about you, huh, sir? And just tell where you are, like your name, rank, and a little bit about your what you did in the. Actually, just do an initial introduction first. So let's start off. Why don't we start off with Colonel Malone? Would you like to introduce yourself first?
Sure. Hi, I'm Colonel Michael Malone. Recently retired from the U.S. Army. I spent 32 years in the Army. I was medevaced out of Iraq in the Middle East in 2016 and ended up at Walter Reed. And ironically, I suffered a traumatic brain injury there, which extended my stay. So I spent more time doing adaptive sports. I did the Warrior Games in 2016 or 2017, which was a lot of fun. And I've kind of got involved in adaptive sports because of, the physical limitations of my injuries. I now hand cycle because of balance issues and just damage to my knees after carrying a heavy ruck for a long time. And I also enjoy swimming, except for there's been no swimming here since COVID-19. While I was in adaptive sports, I got into archery, which I find really relaxing. So helps calm the anxiety that I have. And so I found adaptive sports is just a way for me to try to stay in shape given my injuries and, just improve my outlook on life.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Major Malone. We're going to get back, and I'm going to get into a little more with some of those sports you're talking about there. You left one out. And so why don't we go to I'm Major Malone's rowing coach, so the fact that he left out that he does rowing. Major, thank you, Colonel Malone. See, look at that. I gave you a demotion. Why don't we have Colonel's lovely wife, Jennifer, speak next, and they are at different sites right now because she's doing top secret stuff. But Jennifer, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, my name is Jennifer. I am Michael's wife. I'm currently in New York City, trying to battle this COVID stuff with my family. Let's see. Well, Army, right? Because my husband's Army. I'm his caregiver. To me, the good part about being allowed to partake in his adaptive sports, like giving me permission to go with him, is because I could see what his limitations are. I could see the sports that he's capable of doing due to physical limitations that he has. He did rowing in Boston, which was thanks to Patrick. He didn't know that he would be into this, but because of Patrick and introducing it to him, he loved it, right? He went to Boston and did that ERG competition first time. So that was a blessing, and so because of and then when he joined these different types of groups, he could see how far he can go with the limitations that he had, right? If he did not join this, he wouldn't know, and he wouldn't get to experience other sports that he probably wouldn't know that he could do.
Right. Thank you, Jennifer. And yeah, we're going to have you talk a little more later. No, I love it. Just as long as you're cooking something for me and you put it in the mail, I'm happy. Thank you. So Gunny Rose, why don't we have you and your wife are there on the same bat channel. So why don't you guys go ahead and introduce yourself next, please?
Hi, my name is Gunnery Sergeant Jonathan Rose. I currently work at the Pentagon. I handle all the wounded warrior care and policy issues for the Department of the Navy, on top of many other things. Glad y'all had the call today. I'm super into adaptive sports. I've started cycling, anything in a wheelchair, anything you can do in sports that's adaptive, I'll do. And then my wife, Colleen.
Hi, I'm Colleen Rose. I'm an occupational therapist. I'm my husband's wife. That makes sense. I'm also his caregiver since he was injured in May of 2010. I'm excited to be here. Thanks for inviting us.
Thank you. It's great to see both of you. Awesome. All right, why don't we go on next? We have Sergeant First Class Eric Neuauer, who is subbing in today. So Eric is at Fort Belvoir right now, and he ran over to where there's wireless so he could jump on there. So we really appreciate that Eric subbing in for one of our other panelists who is actually stuck in the Pentagon doing some important stuff. So Eric, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit?
All right. Okay, my name is Eric Neuauer, part of the Army. I'm at Fort Belvoir currently, most specifically at the hospital. The sports that I've participated in thus far are first archery and cycling, and then rowing and air rifle, kind of in that order. Yeah, so I enjoy the focus that they give to take thoughts away from current situations.
Awesome. Well, we're very happy to have you here. Thank you for joining us today, Eric. And I think I'm just going to go ahead and see if Mr. Schaefer, would you want to introduce yourself and be a surprised panelist today?
Oh, sure. Thank you, Patrick. I appreciate it. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon or evening, wherever everyone is at. I'm Captain Daryl Schaefer. I'm with the U.S. Coast Guard and was part of Team Navy last year at the Warrior Games. I came from a triathlon background primarily, so swimming, biking, running, been doing that since 1976, I think it was, when I started all this stuff. And from there, I've just been trying to figure out what I want to do. Now it's coming up on almost exactly 3 years since I had my stroke, and 1 year since I had my TBI. After that, I competed at the Warrior Games last year in cycling, running, swimming, and was supposed to be on the volleyball team, but had to be pulled at the last minute once we were there because I couldn't. My TBI, my bike accident, happened 2 weeks before the game, so it was a little bit of a challenge to keep my balance and such. So I am still on active duty. Been in the Coast Guard now coming up on 30 years, and we'll see what happens next year, if I'm going to retire or take one more job. We'll see what happens.
Thank you so much for joining. I'll tell you guys a little bit. We've been joking with Captain Schaefer because he typically can't have his camera on at work. So for a couple of weeks with all of our virtual stuff, we thought that he was not a real person. He says that he's at the Pentagon. So finally he turned his camera on last week. So we verified, and now we have that smile. So his camera has to stay on. So it's, I'll say just, we're going to go into some questions, just kind of going around the room a little bit, just keeping it really free form. Kelly's going to queue up a couple of questions here and there. And I just want you guys just to share as you may. One of the things for me that this whole format has provided, as you see right now, we have RSMs, we have old friends, we have new friends all over the country. Yesterday, we had one of our RSMs who was in Hawaii talking to one of his friends who's here, in DC. So I'm really appreciative of what we're able to do and figuring out new ways to stay connected. And I think this will be part of our new norm, is staying connected with our friends and our shipmates and our, everyone all together. I'm a sailor, so I say shipmates all the time. So
my name is Belinda Sell. I'm the peer support coordinator for the National Capital Region, and I'm happy to join you guys today. I'm having a bit of technical difficulty, so if you see me drop off, I'll log back in as soon as I possibly can, and I'm here to support any caregiver or wounded, ill, or injured warrior that may need resources for housing and anything else that you may possibly need. I'm available to assist. Thank you.
Wonderful. It's great having you, Belinda.
Oh, one more thing. I am a caregiver for my son. He is a Iraqi veteran, and I'm also a veteran. So, thank you.
Oh, I didn't know that. Thank you, Belinda. Thank you for sharing that, Belinda. And definitely, I can put you in contact with Belinda at the end of this. Just ask me or Kelly, and we definitely want to utilize her great resources. Thank you, Belinda. Gunny Rose, just can you guys share any maybe a story or a activity or something where you've kind of what you've done together, or something that just kind of stands out to you, like as an aha moment, something that that you remember? Would you mind sharing?
What was it?
I think for me personally, first of all, I have to say thank you to Sergeant Major Parson. Hearing all of the talk about integrating the caregivers just warms my heart, because that wasn't always the case. It was always the case in our experience with the adaptive sports program. It was one of the first ones that really started to include the spouse and caregiver. And I think on my end, one of the things that I always think about is when he was first injured, I kept thinking, okay, we're going to be here for X amount of time. He's going to have his surgeries, do his therapy. We're going to go back home. Things are going to be back normal. I'm just going to keep my eye on the prize, which, as we all know, nothing's ever the same again. That was a pipe dream. But I think adaptive sports helped me realize that and start to build a community, because when he would be cycling, I went cycling a few times with him. I did some sit-down volleyball, which was really fun. And I got to meet the other spouses and other injured service members and realize things are different. They're never going to be the same again, but it'll be okay. And then
we had this community to support us through that. And I feel like for me, that was an aha moment. It was, things are different, but they'll be okay. And here's this group of people that will help you through it.
That's incredible to hear. I love that, because truly, I agree. Thank you, Sergeant Major. He really, he drives it home, you know, how important these programs are and how important you guys are to the recovery process, and just the sheer resiliency of recovering service members and families and caregivers is incredible. Gunny Rose, you've been around for a bit. Yes, right? You were started in the program. If you wouldn't mind telling us when you did get started with the program, kind of what brought you there.
Yeah, I got injured, like my wife said, in May of 10. And the height of the war, a lot of people was coming and I was at the small detachment there in San Antonio. So we had a little bit of adaptive equipment, but it was more able-bodied equipment that we would have to adapt to fit everybody else. And as y'all know, every person fits something different. So kind of starting to get people out of the barracks and go make up a game, have 2 trash cans and 5 wheelchair basketballs, see who can smash down and get a flat volleyball into a trash can the quickest. Just little things like that was great. And then all of a sudden, by the time I was leaving San Antonio in 13, the Marine Corps came out with their war program. Some of those things, like I've never really rode a bicycle till I went out with a group, and I was like, oh, I kind of like this. I never thought about wheelchair basketball or seated volleyball or any of these crazy things. So I got in the programs. I'm like, oh, let me try that out. You know, I'm a blind guy. I can close my other eye to shoot a gun. Oh, that's a lot harder than I thought it was. You know? So just kind of going through those things and helping others and helping myself at the same time, and having that community to always go back to.
Wonderful. Thank you. Captain Schaefer, how about you? Can you share just one? I know you've shared before about your commute, and which is always super fun for me to hear about, because apparently, while I've been on the water coaching rowing, he's been traveling over us pretty much every day, and we didn't know for years. So
Absolutely. Well, as I mentioned, I've been in the Coast Guard now for almost 30 years, and for that same 30 years, I have not owned a vehicle, a car, truck, whatever. So we still rent. I'm not anti-car, but we have our bicycles, and so I've done all of our commuting, both my wife and I, by bicycle. And right now I live on Joint Base Anacostia Bowling in southwest DC, and I ride to the Pentagon 8 miles every day. So I go over a couple bridges and wave at the rowers down below me, and every now and then, you know, there might be somebody who waves back. So okay, that's cool. I like that. But one of the things that I've always enjoyed about my bike ride, regardless of where I'm working, it's always been a decompression for me at the end of the day. We all know that doing work is a pain in the butt, especially when you work in policy and all you do is sit here and read 1,000 pages of the National Defense Authorization Act. Oh, God, yes. So I need to decompress after that, and that's what I enjoy about my bike ride. So it helps me get out, helps me stay in basic shape. Although on the weekends, I do like to get out and do some extra riding. And bicycling has always been a very large passion of mine. I started racing in 1979, and that led me into the triathlons with my swimming and running before that. But I've always been one to really try to embrace it. When I started getting involved in adaptive sports, about a year after my injury, luckily we were right here at Walter Reed, and was able to get in touch with Ray at the bike shed there, and started saying, okay, I've got all these years of bicycling, but now I can still ride an upright bike, but I want to know how to help other people. I want to take my knowledge of all my years of riding and parlay that into something that I can help other people. Most recently, and what was going to happen this summer, my doc finally said, especially after my bike crash in the race last year, I can't ride an upright bike with other people. So he's going to say I have to ride a recumbent with other people. What I do on my own time is my own. So I still have my upright bike that I commute every day to work with. I still have my upright tri-bike. but I'm going to get a recumbent for work with the Wounded Warriors and start learning and helping other people on how to do this in a different way.
Beautiful. I can see why you'd want it.
Wonderful. Well, Captain Schaefer, we're gonna come back to a point that you made on our next round of questions about the peer and helping other people, because that's a very important part. So we're gonna swing back and I'm gonna ask you guys about that. But Colonel Malone and Jennifer, can you? I know personally I've seen Colonel Malone like come in and like having a bad day and then just fall in love with being able to exercise and then see that smile that we're seeing today and see just how it's helped him. But for me, the thing that was the most impactful is seeing Jennifer so proud and hearing how proud she is and seeing how that feeds them as a couple. Jennifer and Colonel, would you mind sharing a little bit about just one experience? Like, what was one trip or one activity or one, what was your first activity? Or, can you share something that's kind of sticks out in your head as something that brought you?
So I don't remember the first activity. So when my husband got sick for the first 2 years, I actually wasn't with him. He was by himself. So he started adapting without me. But for example, let's talk about rowing, right? He really wanted to get into rowing because it's something that he's never totally done before. But because he had right side weakness, thanks to Patrick, you suggested like taping his hand. Back then, exercise is a stress reliever for him. He's very competitive. I'm sure you know that.
Yes.
A lot of people know he's very competitive. Even if you go to Walter Reed and look at the board, his name is on the board for doing really well in certain things. He's got to do better, So, but when he got sick, he couldn't do a lot of things. And since he couldn't do a lot of exercise, he was starting to stress, he didn't have something to relieve his stress, right? He was sad and just didn't want, a little mopey, right? So when he got into rowing, he said he wanted to get into rowing, thanks to you. You said, hey, just tape the arm. I understand you have right side weakness, but you could still do it. You have your left arm and everything like that. And you had leg problems. So you don't need that, right? Really, for rowing. So he came back happy every time he go there. And he spent however much time with you, 45 minutes. Even he'll try to squeeze even half an hour, 15 minutes. He'd leave happy, and that's the thing. My husband doesn't have a temper, thank God. He he controls his PTS, but I can see his sadness, right? And I'm already starting to tear, right? But because of the exercise, it just I don't want him to just be okay. I want him to be happy, and that made him happy. And so all these adaptive sports, archery, he tried bowling, cycling, of course, again, with his competitives, he did great, got into War Games, but hurt his head. He got a brain injury for that. But every time he did any type of adaptive sports, he finished happy. And that's the most important thing, right? He's a great husband. Like I said, no temper, very caring, but you can see that he's just playing. He didn't smile when he got hurt as much, right? He was positive, but he didn't smile. But the adaptive sports made him like enjoy life. It gave him a purpose and something to do, and because of what he's learned, he's able to help others too. He's helped Wounded Warrior Project during a soldier ride. He helped some of the people with like bikes, checking their bikes in the height, thanks to Ray. So, all you coaches are also, very eager to help them so they can help others. So
Jennifer, great. I want to really stress the one thing that really kind of gave me of the feels when Jennifer says he's happy. And I'll say that is the thing that that fuels me, like as a coach, is I remember every session when Michael would show up, when he would come in and he just couldn't wait to do stuff, and he would be smiling because he's getting to do. And you're right, if it's like 15 minutes, he would run in there and get on for 15 minutes and then go. And that example, I want to say for all of you, we have a lot of you in upper leadership here, high ranking, because I don't think you really understand how much of an impact you make on those other soldiers, sailors, Marines, and airmen who are there. Because I know from the Army side, a lot of folks notice, wow, look at Malone over there. And they'd be like, hey, can I do that? And so people are watching you, and they're watching you overcoming and adapting and just saying, hey, I'm going to keep going. So I appreciate that. And I appreciate, what you ladies have shared about what an impact it makes, because that, to me, that's really what it's all about. Wonderful. Me and Jennifer will get really emotional if we start talking too much.
Well, it is very emotional. I don't think anybody could listen to that and not get emotional. I mean, you hit the nail on the head, right? So this is not just about rehab and recovery to get you to just, your status quo, right? You want to optimize quality of life. This is what we're looking for. And all the things you guys have said, community. I mean, everybody thinks of adaptive sport, right, as this is one of the questions I want to just throw out to any of you guys to answer. So you, having been around, having done it so much, being peer mentors within these adaptive reconditioning and sport activities, everybody thinks of, okay, physical recovery when you are participating in a sport. But it's so much more than that, right? What other things? I mean, I heard stress relief being one of them, your decompression. What have you seen for your being around so long? It really, really help other RSMs with being involved in these programs.
Eric, would you like to share? Are you able to there at the hospital?
Rephrase the question.
Kelly, go ahead.
No, so other than, I think a lot of people tend to focus on the primary benefit of adaptive sport is physical recovery, right? But I don't know that sounds like you guys don't necessarily feel that's the primary thing from it. So what other ways does it help you?
Well, as Mrs. Rose said earlier, the community. And I'll add to that the camaraderie. You're basically getting to know other people who have similar or like experiences that are doing activities that are the same. And just in doing that, you have that camaraderie that's built. And for me, that goes across just again, I'm down at Fort Belvoir, and we have a pretty good archery coach. Volunteers his time. Have a couple down here who are master trainers. And then we had a group that came down from Walter Reed once a week, and they came on different days, but it was a time to continue to go down and get the arrow flinging in, and you just kind of build that camaraderie.
I know there's so many great stories in it, and it is very personal. It is very great for you guys to share and talk about what you've done. So just kind of as we're going around to start kind of wrapping up, does anybody have any fun story or something that has happened that was kind of fun or funny or just a little something you'd like to share? I have some, but I'm not going to share. Yeah. Gunny Rose?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Once I left in 2013 and went back to the fleet, back to the operating forces, I became a company gunner sergeant of a Moto T company. And I was always going over to visit Sergeant Major Parsons because I knew him from prior deployments. I'm like, hey, what would you think about me bringing my staff NCOs and officers and some of the junior Marines to come play the wheelchair basketball team over here at the battalion? He's like, that would be awesome. So I go back, some of the staff NCOs and officers are like, oh, I can ball unbelievably. I was like, okay, you realize we're playing wheelchair basketball, right? And the Sergeant Major and CO go out every day and play racquetball for 2 hours. They're studs of athletes. Bring them over there, and I'm like, hey, I forgot to tell y'all, you might want to bring some gloves. Well, the battalion had some gloves that we could use, but we get out there, and the Sergeant Major looks at me, he's like, these guys are good. I play basketball every day. You didn't tell us we was going to be in wheelchairs. I was like, it's wheelchair basketball. What did you think we was going to do? And we play for probably an hour and a half, 2 hours. I've got lance corporals and lieutenant colonels and sergeant majors, first sergeants.
So awesome.
2 hours later, we go back to the battalion, and sergeant major walks up to my door. He's like, "Man, I can't even knock on your door. What did you do to me?" For the next 3 days, him and the CO couldn't play racquetball because he just shredded his shoulders and his arms. He's like, "I didn't even think my abs would hurt because I was sitting." I was like, "Oh yeah, you gotta throw everything into it." But that's one thing I like to do, to educate other people that don't know about adaptive sports, because one day those senior leaders may be in charge of somebody that has to go through adaptive sports.
Well, Jennifer and Mrs. Rose, we'll just kind of give you guys the final hurrah, since you are our featured all-stars today. They're our true talent, our true heroes for what we're doing today. So both of you ladies, if you have any last story, statement, or anything you would like to make on behalf of our team, we just really can't say enough how much we appreciate what you do as being a part of the military family, and it means a lot to all of us. So if you have anything you would like to share before we start wrapping up.
Yeah, I would like to say that I think Jennifer hit the nail on the head with, I don't want my husband to just be okay. I want him to be happy. And I feel like I felt that, because that was the difference. He was himself more so. He was okay. He was fine. And I do feel like the physical recovery, to me, was probably the least important part of the adaptive sports. Like we have talked about, the community, the camaraderie, the holistic approach of involving the family, I feel like has been shown time and time again through research, but funnily enough, hasn't really hit the mainstream yet. But you guys were doing that before it was cool. So the fact that it's getting bigger and bigger is just great for people down the line. I love that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Jennifer, how about you? Any last words?
Well, I pretty much said what I had to say before, but one thing I really appreciate it is the fact that you allow the spouses to participate in some of the events, because that allows us to see what our spouses are capable of doing and experience their enjoyment, right? There was a period of time at Walter Reed that spouses were not allowed to go. And so, your husbands would come home, they're happy, but you don't know what they were doing there. So I didn't know what I could do to help him stay happy like that, right? And especially since my husband had a brain injury, he might not remember everything he did there, right? Because he has short-term memory loss. So, but when I get to go and help, I can mimic that same experience at home, and I can get whatever I need to get so he can continue staying happy when this COVID, right? If we didn't learn everything from the adaptive, I wouldn't know what to do when we got during this time we're home.
Great. Thank you, Jennifer. And reinforcing that statement, what I've loved, like I said, I've been a recovering service member myself at Walter Reed. I've been retired for 9 years, but my last couple of years I was on the other side of the table there, and can't reinforce any more, like seeing the change that's happened throughout programs, the open ears going, this is what we need to change. There's always something like, oh, this is bad, this is a challenge, but seeing the things growing in the right direction is so encouraging for all of us, and know that that's because of the input of when you as service members and spouses are giving that input and being patient and saying, hey, this is what works, this is what I want to see. We hope that as we keep developing programs, they're better every year. They're a little better, they're meeting more needs. And a lot of that is because you are taking the time to share and be open. And I really appreciate that. I had one service member who couldn't be here today who asked me to share just a short version of his story on that. When he left Walter Reed, the sports that he learned, we actually had his 3 daughters come to everything, and they learned the sports together. And now back at home, they're doing those sports together. They're playing basketball together. They're rowing together. They're doing all the sports that they learned together. And he said he wanted to share how, because of that time when he really couldn't do all that stuff, it helped facilitate keeping those relationships together where they're having fun and having that casual talk that maybe wouldn't happen. A lot of times we have when we're just hanging out with a friend on the field. So I want to encourage all of you to continue spreading what you've learned, sharing it, because you are an example of a small example of amazing folks who have come through our programs. And it makes me very happy, and I know can speak for our entire team at Military Adaptive Sports Program, that it makes us very happy and motivates us to keep doing and reinventing, being producers, doing whatever needs to happen so we keep this connection going and just keep seeing ourselves healing and growing. So I'm going to say that's my last thing. I'll let Kelly take us out with our last words, and then we're going to log off and go enjoy the weekend. So Kelly.
No, I just have to echo, it's a true joy to do what we do. And, I kind of feel like we just might give you the logistics and structure it and provide it, because really what I experience and what I see is it is the peer, right? It's the peer interaction. It is the camaraderie. It's the, hey man, grab my number if you're ever having an issue. It can connect with me. It is the caregivers coming together at these events and meeting each other and sharing ideas and sharing. And just, I think that we've used the word community quite a bit today, but it is paramount to know you're not alone. And you all do that for each other. We may give, like I said, we may give the framework, but you all really do it for each other, and you're incredible, and you're the ones pushing this forward. So thank you all very, very much. And thank you all for being here today.
Hey, Patrick, before we drop off, could I say one thing?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, a couple of people mentioned brain injuries. I had a traumatic brain injury, and I'm building an app to help those with traumatic brain injuries with remembering the things that they want to remember. So if anybody knows of anybody that wants to be part of our beta test, I would love to talk to them. We now have the app up in beta. It's standalone, but I find it really helpful, and I just want to share that with the community here.
That would be wonderful. And Michael can be reached. I can put you in contact with him. So anybody who's hearing that or knows someone, definitely kick me an email, send me a text, and I'll connect you with Colonel Malone.
Hey, Colleen, I did just want to ask you, I know you've been involved with the Elizabeth Dole Caregiver Foundation for a while now. Can you share a little bit about what that is and how it's helped you as a caregiver?
Yeah, one of the things I love about the Elizabeth Dole Foundation is that it was started by a caregiver. Senator Elizabeth Dole was caring for her husband, Senator Bob Dole. They hire caregivers, and they really have their ear to the ground with caregiver issues. So the foundation is in whatever space caregivers are. They're working big picture things, partnering with the VA, partnering with federal and local government to help make big systemic change. But then it trickles all the way down to every caregiver across the country. They have a caregiver fellow program, which I'm a part of. And there are caregiver fellows in every single state, as well as Puerto Rico. And we work closely with the foundation to share our story, to advocate in our areas, to advocate on a federal level, to help caregivers all around us. And I think that that's similar to the adaptive sports program, because you guys are really listening to what the service members are saying, and you're making changes based on that. So with COVID-19, one of the big things that the Elizabeth Dole Foundation is doing is they're moving virtual. We talked a lot about community today. They have this C3 program called Caregiver Community Connection, and it's all about virtual sessions. They're once a week, and it's all related to healthy lifestyle, self-care, self-love. They'll have workouts. They'll have caregivers come on and talk about how in the world they're able to manage taking care of their loved one, their children, their parents, themselves. How can you work out for 5 minutes? How can you make a healthy meal on a budget? How can you do all these things? So I like the connection between the adaptive sports and the Elizabeth Dole Foundation, because it's really very holistic and very current and of the moment, for sure.
Well, thank you everyone for coming to our end of the week little roundtable. I feel like it's just some friends hanging out. We're just going out and just hanging out. It's great seeing your faces. I'm really motivated to go have a good weekend and be down on the water so I can see Daryl ride his bike over while I'm rowing. So we know to look for each other now. And I'm going to buy a comb, and me and Michael are going to do some hair design. I think we voted on a mohawk. So Jennifer still has to give official approval of that. And Gunny, I think we're going to just leave your hair just like it is. It's perfect. So So thank you, everyone, on behalf of Military Adaptive Sport Program, and we're signing off, and bye-bye.